If you walk into a room, and within seconds, before a single word is spoken, something shifts inside you. Not because of anything obvious. The conversation is normal, the smiles are there. But you already noticed it. The glance that didn't land, the pause that lasted half a second too long, the smile that never quite reached the eyes. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Most people would call this a gift, and part of it is. But there's a side to this that nobody talks about, because the same brain that catches everything never turns off. You don't just leave the room, you take it home, replay it, dissect it, analyze it at 2 a.m. when you should be sleeping. You can turn a single moment of silence into an entire spiral of thoughts, and you have no idea how to stop. If that's familiar, then you already know. It's exhausting in a way that's hard to explain. You're not anxious about anything obvious, you're just always on. And the more aware you become, the lonelier it starts to feel, because the world around you doesn't seem to be running at the same frequency. So where does this come from? Psychology divides this into two roots, and one of them runs much deeper than most people realize. The first is biological. Science calls them highly sensitive persons, HSPs, people born with a nervous system wired to process everything more deeply. For them, the world was never neutral. It was always louder, sharper, more intense. Not because something went wrong, because that's simply how they're built. The second root is learned. Neuroscience calls it hypervigilance. And this one usually starts in childhood, in environments where emotions were unpredictable, where you couldn't just live, you had to read the room before the room reacted to you. You didn't guess moods, you predicted them. The sound of footsteps down the hallway, the way a car pulled into the driveway, the volume of a cabinet closing in the kitchen. Your brain learned one thing early: detect the shift before it hits you. Biologically, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, was firing constantly. It recorded a message into your nervous system: this environment is not safe, keep scanning. And over time, your brain built something remarkable to protect you: a radar, a dense network of neurons designed to predict emotional danger before it arrived. That radar didn't disappear when you grew up. It became part of your personality, your posture, your instincts. And when you became an adult, you looked in the mirror and asked the wrong question. Why am I always like this? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. You simply learned to survive in a language no one else around you is still speaking. So, how does this show up in your life right now?
Sign 1. Your brain runs simulations non-stop. Your boss sends a message at 4 p.m. Come see me for a minute later. For most people, that's just a meeting. For you, it's a code to crack. Something felt cold in the wording, the punctuation, the word minute. You don't just read words, you read atmospheres. Part of this is the default mode network, the brain's self-reflection system, which in people like you runs almost continuously, even at rest. Your mind is always doing math in the background, even when your face looks completely calm. Sign 2. You watch yourself from the outside. You don't just feel things, you examine them. Psychology calls this metacognition, thinking about your own thinking. For most people, it's occasional. For you, it never switches off. You're at a dinner party, you laugh at a joke, and a split second later, part of your mind is floating near the ceiling asking, did that laugh sound too forced? It's like dancing while staring at your reflection in a mirror. Every step is technically correct, but somewhere in the process, the joy disappears. Sign 3. Relationships stop feeling simple. Once you start seeing behind the surface of human behavior, you can't unsee it. Someone is kind to you, and instead of just receiving it, your brain is already scanning. Why now? What do they want? You understand, on a level most people don't, that kindness can carry conditions, that apologies are sometimes about managing discomfort, not genuine accountability, that a promise is fragile before it's even made. This doesn't make you bitter, it makes you cautious, and quietly, deeply lonely, even in a room full of people, because no one else seems to be seeing what you're seeing. Sign 4. Your empathy doesn't switch off. It's not a skill you activate when someone needs support. It runs constantly. You walk into a meeting room with no visible conflict, and you feel the unspoken tension between two people who haven't made eye contact in 10 minutes. A stranger on the bus taps their foot with anxious energy, and your own heart rate rises. Psychology connects this to mirror neurons, the neural systems that cause us to internally experience what we observe in others. In you, this doesn't stop at understanding. It becomes absorption. A friend describes something painful, and 3 days later, that pain is still sitting in your chest like it belongs there. You become the emotional regulator for everyone around you, and almost no one thinks to ask if you're okay. Sign 5. Your body is always on edge. All of that absorbed emotion doesn't stay in the mind. It moves into the body. Researchers call this interoception, the brain's ability to sense its own internal physical state. In people who are overly aware, this system is hypersensitive. You drink a coffee, feel your heart rate climb slightly, and your brain immediately flags that as danger. A completely normal sensation becomes an emergency signal. And this creates a loop. You feel something, your mind escalates it, your body reacts, the sensation gets stronger. You feel restless and wired even when nothing is actually wrong. So at some point, your mind reaches for the one thing that feels like relief: control. Not over other people, control through prediction. If you can think through every possible outcome, you believe you can protect yourself from being blindsided by pain. So you run simulations. What if this person pulls away? What if this falls apart? How do I react so I don't collapse? Psychology calls this analysis paralysis. You end up living in 10 possible futures simultaneously, while the actual present moment slips past unnoticed. So what actually helps? The answer is not to become less aware. That's not possible. It would be like asking someone with perfect pitch to learn to hear music as noise. The shift isn't in the awareness, it's in what you choose to carry. 3 things help. First, not every silence is a message. A late reply doesn't mean something is wrong. A coworker who walked by without smiling probably just has a headache. Not everything is about you, and learning that is freedom, not naivety. Second, not every emotion needs to be solved. When anxiety appears, you can notice it without running it through the analysis engine. My heart is beating fast. That's just a sensation. Observe it. Let it pass. You don't have to fix every feeling you have. Third, not every insight needs an action. You may clearly see someone's pain, someone's insecurity, someone's hidden motive, and you can still choose not to carry it home. Clarity is only a gift when it comes with boundaries. When you practice this, something begins to shift. Your awareness doesn't disappear. It softens. You still see deeply into people, but you stop clutching everything you see. The sharp, exhausting laser slowly becomes a warm candle, bright enough to understand human complexity, gentle enough to finally warm yourself. You stop trying to carry every equation of the world on your shoulders at the same time, and slowly, genuinely, you begin to belong to your own life again. Not because the world gets simpler, not because people become less complicated, but because you finally stop trying to solve it all alone. If you saw yourself in this video, drop a comment about the sign that hit closest to home, because most people carry this silently for years, and they don't have to. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are wired to feel and see deeply, and that is something worth understanding. If this hits something real, like it and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of content we make here.